question came up about when that three individuals are going over notes, how they can discuss the notes and how to handle them, so to speak. And we said that it has to be, the notes have to be just answered. In other words, you aren't to criticize somebody in the process of answering the note. Put them down. Be careful what kind of words you use. Like if you say Andy has to be picked up at 3 o'clock, but he has a tendency to be late, so we better not be out there before 15 minutes. The way that's expressed sounds to me like it's almost like they put down to you. And so the best way to have said that was that Andy gets off at 3 o'clock, but he's usually not through with his work until about 3:15, so we would be safe to pick him up at that time. This is how you want to be so careful about what comes out of your mouth so that you do not hurt anybody. Remember, as your mind comes into your vehicle, it becomes more sensitive. The mind cannot come into the vehicle unless what is in the vehicle is as gentle as the mind is.
And it's not only so that you won't hurt someone, but so that you will break the habit of being free to let that out, let that thought surface in your own mind, because this has to be changed.
That three people do not have the authority to put somebody on the carpet, so to speak, and tell them what they do wrong. We've never given, that I know of, given you all the authority to do this. And of course, after the meeting last night, well, we shouldn't have that come up.
I'm going to put something else in a minute. Are you just bringing up a question, or we just happened to be talking to her already about the fact she doesn't sleep very well at times, and she just goes in and out of sleep, things like this, here and there. And we said, well, we have a remedy. We have a way to sleep good. And I'll tell you how it is. It's to get rid of all your good forces if you want to sleep good. In other words, if you really get rid of your anger or your hostility or your sex drive or whatever by giving in to it, you'll start sleeping good. Now, do you want to sleep good? No, of course you don't. But that's why humans sleep good, because they spend themselves, and you don't spend yourselves. And whether it's spending yourself sensually or spending yourself in even in hostility, you would sleep real good. And but you're keeping that force, and as long as you keep that force, you're not going to sleep very well. That's why we program you to rest, to make your vehicle relax and rest. And it's not nothing. It's almost a blessing, so don't worry about it.
This is good. It's a good sign if you can't sleep well, and it certainly isn't anything to worry about. But you've got to remember that your vehicle is the only thing that needs rest in the brain. The brain in this vehicle. And if you can just, I just start the relaxation with saying relax, just subconsciously to the vehicle. Hold maybe an hour or so before it goes down, and just so it will relax. But it's like the eyes are wide awake, whenever it goes down. It's just, and yet the vehicle will feel like it's so relaxed that as soon as it hits the bed, it's just like, the eyes pop open, And so, but I'm not concerned about it. And I never, unless we're traveling.
But he does program our vehicle to, while it's down, to relax, and she will relax. And we usually or frequently compare notes about whether or not we had rest, and we'll say, well, I don't know if I slept much, but I was able to relax. And to us, that's all that counts. Now, and programming your vehicle to relax. Now, funny thing is, if you doze, even for very short periods, but if you doze several times during the night, you can get all the rest you need. It's just like if you're going on a trip in a car or something, and you're very tired because you've been going for hours or a day and a half or something. If you can doze 10 minutes, that the degree of relaxation that was required to get you in a doze state can replenish your energy very, very quickly. You don't need an hour of it or hours of it. You see what we're saying? So as long as you're dozing briefly throughout the night and able to relax your vehicle, you have all the energy you need, all the restoration you need. You don't need X period of sleep, but you do need some dozing. You can't just relax and have no dozing and be rested. You do need some brief periods of dozing to be relaxed.
And it doesn't, he means just dozing, like, I know this vehicle will look at the clock about every 30 minutes to see what time it is, and you think it's been ages, and 13 minutes, 30 minutes, 12:29 and 12:37 anyway. And sometimes it might go an hour or 2 hours. And but we don't rest in the daytime. I mean, it isn't that we take naps in the daytime, and we keep right on going, and we don't feel like we need it. We're not cheating in any way. In other words, we're being honest. We seem to have some energy. So myself, I am so sad now. Well, see, that's the concern with this. If you can relax your brain and your eyes and your vehicle, there's a thing that in those, like I said, and it usually is all that you need.
Let's talk about something else for a minute. This is in order for you to understand your vehicles better and how to cope with them, how to control them. Is it okay to talk a little bit about what we were talking about earlier? About the attraction and repulsion? Okay. Let's talk about some of the things that you've observed about vehicles, but you haven't understood them. Some vehicles only know or have only learned through history or have had, no, let me back up. Some vehicles have had considerable experience at being nice when there was a reason to be nice. And usually the reason to be nice was because they wanted something. They wanted, and this they don't necessarily even know that they want it, but they want it. Let's say that a human vehicle, and that's what the vehicles you're wearing, that's what they know. They know human programming, plus what you have programmed. Now, a human vehicle, if it likes someone and it wants that person to like them, then it knows it has learned how to be nice under those circumstances. Do you see what I'm saying? But that action of saying nice things and being very nice to that person lasts as long as the endeavor is going on to get that person to like them. And as soon as that's not in the picture, getting that person to like them, then that programming of that vehicle doesn't know how to continue to be nice. In other words, they've learned that process of nice talk and cooperation and smiles and pleasantness. They've learned how to do that as a means toward getting that person to like them. But let's say for some reason they stop trying to get that person to like them because they've been with them so long now that they know they're not going to get anywhere on that score. You see what I'm saying? Which all your vehicles have experienced, certainly with your classmates, that your vehicles aren't after some other vehicle. Do you follow that? And therefore, it has that programming that it could put into action of being nice in order to get liked. That programming has worn out. It's passé. And so then it doesn't know how to act. It knows how to act on programming toward people it didn't like. It's almost its only option. This is some vehicles that haven't had much programming. They've had programming of only maybe two nature: how to be nice because I want to be liked. But they don't know that was the reason they were. I mean, they don't know that that's the only programming they have towards being nice. Now, there is conflict between genes of vehicles. There are genes of vehicles that are attracted to each other. There are genes of vehicles where one genetic combination of one vehicle is attracted to another vehicle, but that vehicle may not be attracted to that one. Do you follow what we're saying? There's also a vehicle being repelled by another vehicle, though the other individual may not be repelled by them. There are also vehicles that are repelled by most vehicles. Find very few vehicles that it could be attracted to. Almost so much that the only vehicles that could be attracted to might be vehicles that would be less intelligent or less lower on the ladder than that vehicle. In other words, they might be attracted more to vehicles that would look up to them because it inflates their ego, and it does great things for the vehicle if they have people liking them who are also looking up to them. You follow those things? Now, also, you've got to take into consideration that some of you have vehicles that had very, very negative characteristics as far as repulsion with other vehicles and things that it might let out its mouth, like comments and so forth, that you have suppressed for years and years and years and years. In other words, those characteristics were present in the heritage of your strain, but you didn't like them when you saw them present in a parent or grandparent or something, and you kept saying, I'm not going to be that way. I'm certainly not going to have that characteristic. And you suppressed it and suppressed it and suppressed it. And now it's coming out. And you're having to deal with characteristics that you've never had to deal with before. You had sufficient motive. The vehicle had sufficient motivation to suppress it because it was busy going after individuals. If you can understand that, because that's the way it works. Now, a lot of this programming is there because the next level, this programming of attraction and repulsion and so forth, is like a control of genetic reproduction. Do you follow that? It's like experiments that are going on that would find certain vehicles attractive and and in certain characteristics, but they might run up against a vehicle that isn't attracted to them, but they keep looking until they find one where they're both attracted to each other, and then that's because that kind of experiment in genetic reproduction is a match. It's going on that way. Now, unfortunately, what the next level is doing in those experiments goes beyond physical attraction. It has to do with other characteristics of the genes beyond physical attraction. So that genetic reproduction worked a lot better when people didn't have offspring on the basis of physical attraction. Physical attraction might have been a characteristic of the relationship, but they were hesitant to involve themselves in reproduction until they also knew that they were attracted to other characteristics in both directions, because then that made a better offspring. In other words, the genetic strain was being improved in those directions. In other words, there are lots of experiments going on at this stage of the human kingdom's development, and people fall into those different experiments and not knowing what they're doing, of course. But they are guided by those strains of experiments by the way their vehicle responds to other vehicles, in either being propelled or attracted. Let's say a lesbian, for example, that experiment is saying, I don't want to reproduce any more of that particular group of genes, and so it's like shutting it off. Do you see what we're saying? And it's like, well, we'll try a little bit of mixing of these this in this experiment out here. We'll try to do a little bit of mixing of maybe a Hispanic with an Anglo, and for some reason or other, those two just are attracted together like more than anything else could be. Do you follow what we're saying? Even though it should go beyond the physical. Now, that's enough of the way it works with humans. But how you can translate that to recognize what's going on in yourself and in your relationship with your class, or let's say not yourself, but the vehicle that you're wearing, is still to remind yourself that no matter what those genetic characteristics were. Now, remember, if I've got a lot of repulsion characteristics because of the experiment that's going on, let's say that there's a lot of illness or a lot of deficiencies going along in my strain, and it wants to only go a very fine line and find very few that it would be attracted to, or none. Let's say if it's to reproduce, and maybe find only a very few, then I will be repulsed by most and only have a very few. Now, if I let that repulsion express itself, I can have a very nasty mouth, sarcastic, and particularly when I've been around you enough that my vehicle knows that it's that there's not going to be any relationship with us. Do you see what I'm saying? And so there's no reason to, there's no motivation for the attraction thing. There's only the freedom then to let all that repulsion characteristic come out because of that particular genetic strain. Therefore, I may have a vehicle that is of a strain that has gotten very weak in certain areas and would only work in a certain area or not work at all. And therefore, I will find usually the only way I can have a good friendship or be attracted to would be to others who have those same weaknesses. It's almost like a camaraderie sense, because it has to be a sublimation of the reproduction aspect of attraction and repulsion. Can you follow that? Okay, now what that ends up being in your case is that you might have a vehicle that, because of its repulsion characteristics, would, if you let it go and do it, what it would do, it could be say things that would repulse almost everyone around it, if you let it do it. Or it could try to attract those who have the same like ailments that it has, if you let it do it. Or it could play the game of trying to seek out just the ones that might also be seeking it. You see, because those characteristics are still there. Now, the only reason we're bringing this up, if we understand it better, is all of that can be overridden. Now, and you must know that it can be overridden. There is no reason for hostility. There is reason why the vehicle would have those characteristics. That's why we're explaining it. But there's no reason for you not to override it. Your next level mind is capable of short-circuiting all of those characteristics that are there genetically that would have, if the vehicle had just been left in the world, would have led it to certain areas. But since it is not going to be led into those areas, your next level mind has to come in and short-circuit those things in order to get control. If it doesn't short-circuit, you're totally frustrated. If you don't let enough next level mind come in to short-circuit those impulses, because you will still, to a degree, be letting that repulsion or attraction act by saying too sweet of things to one person, or too negative of things to another, or too negative to all, or too sweet to all, depending upon what the genetic structure is of your vehicle and what its strain would have been doing had it been left to the human kingdom. But T and I it has been shown to us very, very clearly, without the shadow of a doubt, and this is to encourage you, that not a single one of you is incapable of short-circuiting those impulses. And you have got to know that you can short-circuit. Now, when you understand them better, and don't let, in other words, there's nothing wrong with recognizing all the negative characteristics of your vehicle. The faster you can recognize the characteristics of your vehicle, the quicker you can handle it. But if you're still letting yourself think of the vehicle partially as you, then it's very hard to recognize the negative characteristics of the vehicle, because it seems like a personal put down every time you're accepting negative characteristics of the vehicle. So there's no reason to be slow to accept all of the weaknesses and ailments and characteristics of the vehicle that have to be overridden. They are not you. Those are simply the characteristics of the suit you're wearing. Now, a next level mind can come in and take any of those that might just be loaded with characteristics that seemingly would interfere with control and can short-circuit that. And you all have to, we've taught you how to do it, but some of you still need to know that that the degree of your control is not anything what it should be, or what it can be, let me put it that way. Because if I say what it should be, you can start taking it personal again and thinking we're talking about you. The only thing we're talking about you is we're trying to force enough mind to come into that vehicle to realize that that mind can control that vehicle no matter what the characteristics of that vehicle are. And it can control it to the extent of making an A+ on all these characteristics we're talking about in warnings and strikes. It does not have to do any of those things. And it isn't that big of a chore if you would get more next level mind in. It's not that difficult for you to short circuit those genetic characteristics enough to have no harsh words, to always use a check partner, to have no gossipy participation, to not indulge in anger and anxiety and moodiness and everything else on the list. It is within your capacity to do that, and it isn't nearly the deal your vehicle would have you do it. And you've got to know that, because we've got to do this quickly. We've got to complete this quickly. You can't let your vehicle con you into thinking, okay, it's something I'll work on. It's something that, I'll work on it. It's got to be something that you believe us when we say that no matter what you're dealing with your vehicle, accept those characteristics of the vehicle and override them. Don't be slow to accept them. If you're slow to accepting them, you're still letting the vehicle do too much of the thinking, and next level mind is coming in. The faster you can accept all the handicaps and the things that stand between you and the next level of your vehicle, the faster you have control of it. And the faster you can realize that there's no put down to you, your next level mind, to accept those things. Even your vehicle can take it better if you understand those characteristics and then treat the vehicle as a patient. I mean, treat it, when I say as a patient, you treat it with consideration and care, but you know you have to deal with these characteristics just as if they were all simply nutritional deficiencies. Nothing that needs browbeating any longer. You follow that? It just needs objective programming and repeated objective programming and a keen eye from your next level mind, so that you will less and less let the vehicle speak or do anything on its own. And believe it or not, the vehicle has enough mind to appreciate what your next level mind is trying to do. It's a young mind that vehicle has, but it has enough mind to even want to participate. And it may not be able to participate quite as thoroughly as some other vehicles can participate, but it can participate as well, if you understand the difference between thoroughly and as well. You understand? It may not be able to do as many functions because of the difficulty of the vehicle, or maybe even because of the age of the next level mind. But it can perform with as good conduct and with as good alertness as any other one, no matter the age of the mind or the deficiency of the vehicle. I don't know if I got anything out that'd be helpful to you, but we are so desperate for you all to see this in the right way so that the chore can be easier and quicker for you in getting adequate control. You want to add anything? He just said a very profound statement that we need to remember, and that is that usually when you don't know how to say something without saying it wrong, then it's usually something that there's something wrong with saying.
Doesn't need to be said.
Doesn't need to be said.
Anytime you are trying to write a note about something, and you don't know how to write the note, then it usually doesn't need to be there.
There's usually something wrong with where you're coming from that needs to be corrected. And when it is really corrected, then you'll simply know exactly how to say it right.
So you shouldn't try to write it.
Until you know how to say it right. That's right. Okay? Okay, we're hitting on something here that maybe we ought to put on tape. So it's a very important point. Let's say that I do something as a member of a lab crew that is not normal procedure, but I do it for a reason that I think that everyone would agree would be a right reason. And let's say I did it I had to do it quickly, or whatever the reason. I had to do it out of emergency, or I had to do, let's take the situation with Cody and Alex Cody and putting lead on the pot to make something cook faster. At that point, if I do something that is a little different, since particularly your crew has, whether you're on cereal or you're on toast or whatever it is, you've also been asked to keep to be a part of a total thing and be aware of what's going on. So the only way I'm going to avoid any difficulty or questions where questions shouldn't be asked is if I put the lid on the pot of cereal to make it cook more quickly, then it is my place, as any person appears, to inform them of what I have done, and the one on lab duty I'm talking about, inform them of what I've done and check to see if they don't agree that this is a circumstance that would merit it. And otherwise I put myself on the defensive if I wait for their question. I should never wait for their question. Now, T and I do this constantly to each other on our job. We always inform the other one before the other one would have a reason to ask a question, so that so it eliminates any possibility of taking the other one as prying or, well, don't you trust me? You know, you see what I'm saying? It's like all that question area is eliminated if the person who is doing something that might be out of the ordinary or initiating something immediately explains before the other person has a chance to ask the question. So this is a point that needs to be put into practice. And realize if you don't do it, you have set yourself up for eyes to see you in the wrong way. And that's what you certainly want to avoid.
And eyes aren't supposed to see you.
No. No.
This is in regard.
No, but I didn't mean really eyes seeing you in the wrong way, but eyes that would wonder what you have done. Wonder why this is different. Wonder why you're breaking.